Welcome everybody. Shiji Buzz, first of our episodes for August. We have 4 episodes through this month, especially for our friends, partners, and customers, certainly through APAC. So thanks for joining us today. Really well received, great response for registrations for this session. And then we'll cover the next few topics towards the end today as well. We'll certainly try to keep within our timeframes of 1 hour today. We'll try and get you away early if possible as well. And as you would have noticed, the session is being recorded, so we'll share that with you post the webinar today. Feel free to drop some questions, comments into the Q&A, although you might know many of us personally, so feel free to reach out with your feedback as well. We'd love to hear that. Let's kick off. We might go around the table as such with some introductions. We might go east to west. So Mitchell, that'd be you first, from New Zealand. Fresh, I think you mentioned from a skiing trip in Queenstown. Lucky for those not in lockdown, obviously. Mitchell, welcome. If you'd like to give us a quick introduction, self-introduction, and maybe if you can call out maybe your favorite piece of tech from the last few years.
No worries. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, bit of a intro there, comes straight off the ski field. My name is Mitchell. So I am from WinCave. We're a global payment services organization. I'm based in Auckland, New Zealand, but we have offices in Sydney, Australia, London, UK. We're just about to open an office in Singapore, and we're in Atlanta and LA in the US as well, and actively operate in each market. I've been with WinCave for 6 years now, and primarily focused on the accommodation and hotel sector. And in terms of my favorite piece of technology that's I'd come out in the last few years, really anything to do with mobile check-in for COVID and contactless payments. My background is payments. I'm not a hotelier by trade, so I get excited when I can prepay really easily when I'm staying somewhere, or even if I turn up to a property and people just have PayWave turned on their terminals, because 2 years ago that wasn't really a thing. So.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I know you've got some good comments to share in that space through today as well. Thank you. Nearby here in Sydney, Travis, welcome.
Thank you, Matthew. Yes, I'm Travis McCauley. I am the Asia Pacific Hotel Systems Product Manager at Shiji. I'm very passionate about hospitality technology and all things innovative. The past few years, lots of great technology, particularly for the hospitality industry. Specifically, with the turbulence that COVID has brought our industry, I've seen a lot of difficulty for hotels and food and beverage partners. The technology change we have seen and the uptake of some of those new concepts, such as QR scanning, has been great to see. So for me, it's putting that sort of technology front and center in the industry.
Excellent. Welcome. Thank you. And also based in Sydney, Mataza, welcome.
Hi, Matthew, and greetings from lockdown Sydney. I'm a revenue guy, rooted in the hospitality industry, and have done work around the e-commerce B2B space. And purely from a revenue strategy hat, the last few years, there has been really an exciting lift in innovation and adoption and change. So I found a few interesting revenue management solutions that are doing interesting things. One that stands out for me is a base revenue with whom I have seen clients achieve a level of automation and still manage the volatility so effectively, which is exciting. So good signs for future in our innovation-starved industry.
That is true. Thank you. And it's nice that you can sort of see the life cycle of some of that technology coming through as well, and the results it's bringing. That's great. Simon, finally, welcome. Simon's joining us on a public holiday in Malaysia, so thank you for that.
No problem. Good morning, everybody. Maybe good afternoon for those that are on the afternoon zone. Yep. So let me introduce myself. I'm Simon. I'm from Shiji, Malaysia. I'm also in lockdown, like some of the guys over here. But it's good to have everybody here to listen to our chat. So one of the things that I'm very interested in terms of hotel technology these days is that beyond what the other gentlemen here have already mentioned, things like contactless payments, mobile check-in. There's also things like a smart hotel, right? So today, when I check into a hotel as a guest, be it in KL, be it in Sydney, be it in Tokyo, the moment I check in, I have my preferences logged. For example, the room temperature, right? I like a cool 25 degrees. I don't like it too cold. I don't like it too hot. But the moment I check into a hotel in Sydney, the temperature has already, the more I step into the room, the more I put in my key card, temperature automatically changes to 25 degrees Celsius according to my liking. So that is something that wasn't achieved a few years ago. But today, with the power of cloud, with the power of the internet and guest personalization, single profiles, these are all possible. So as a hotel, this will actually benefit your guests, right? I mean, their preferences are ported over to no matter which city they stay in. These are all ported over, so it's very convenient for them. It also builds the brand loyalty as well. Okay.
Thank you, Simon. That's a good extension of sort of Mitchell's comments around sort of recognition there at the front desk when you're arriving at a hotel to really take it through the entire property and the entire stay. So some interesting things there, I'm sure we can talk about today. Finally, Matthew Clark here from Shiji Australia. I'm the sales manager across our region, based here in our Sydney offices as well, lockdown as well. Simon referenced the gentleman today on the call. I promise more diversity on the future episodes of Shiji Buzz. No offense to anybody here today. All right, let's jump in. We've got lots to get through today. I think everybody's sold right on the concept of cloud and moving technology to the cloud. Shiji published a study recently through the SCIF channels, etc. And over the next 2 years, some 60+% of hoteliers envisage that that most or all of their technology would be in the cloud, right? So the concept of actually selling the cloud is pretty much done. So saying that, what benefits or opportunities really should we be expecting or looking for during that process of getting our tech stack to the cloud? Travis, maybe from your technical background and some of the nuances there, what are you seeing as those benefits and opportunities?
Certainly. Well, cloud isn't a new subject, and for hospitality, as you mentioned, it is estimated that by 2023, the majority of hotel tech infrastructure will be completely cloud-based. As always, the guest experience remains the main motivation with hotel technology, and the need to create a frictionless guest-first approach is essential. So it's not simply about just moving to a cloud version of the property management system, but adopting a platform that really has the foundations to build on the hotel systems technology. For me, the word platform really illustrates that concept well, more so than the word hub or the word system, because it can be the base layer for layers of technology and the connections to be added and potentially removed later. For me, property management system is still the term that most people use, and that's fine, but we at Shiji want to move beyond that old definition and bring it to the 21st century. So cloud for me really is an opportunity for all hotel partners.
Awesome, thank you. And Mitchell, your opening comments there around sort of payment touch points, the consumer touch points. There's a lot of reference to sort of friction in how people are served or processes in technology. What do you see as sort of cloud helping in that area?
I think really just refining that experience as a guest of when I'm checking into a property, how can it be as easy as possible for me to come into that property? Am I having to sign 2 or 3 pages of documents? Something that really can annoy me as a consumer of someone who stays in properties from a payment perspective when I stay somewhere is when someone wants to take an excessive authorization for the room rate plus $200 a night for incidentals, you know, and then I want to stay and I've got this huge hold sitting on my card, whether that's my card for business or not. And I think one of the benefits of cloud, whether that's mobile app and you're taking prepayment before check-in, or whether it's payment integration, where you have a card on file that can be used for incidentals. A number of the properties that I work with or am working with are coming to us looking for ways about how they can focus on making that experience as smooth and as streamlined as possible. So that's what I would say from my background. That's one of the biggest opportunities through moving to cloud.
I appreciate that. I think it's a good reminder to sort of have that sort of guest expectation, guest experience really foremost in our planning and our thoughts there as well. Yeah. And Simon, you engage with a whole lot of hoteliers and groups across the region. And I suppose benefits and opportunities of cloud are always sort of being compared against that sort of legacy on-premise technology. What are you sort of uncovering or discovering during those engagements?
Yeah, man. I mean, like when I talk to owners, we sort of tell them what are the benefits of moving from a traditional on-premise, like a PMS to cloud. One of the things we always emphasize that you have flexibility, right? So you have the flexibility of using mobile devices nowadays with any any cellular enabled device, be it a phone or a tablet. Now you can nowadays you can run the hotel PMS from the palm of your hand. So many years ago, you need PCs, you need big servers to do all this. This is not possible. So that's one of the benefits of having a cloud-based system. Secondly, of course, when you migrate to cloud, you reduce a lot of the IT costs. You just need to spend a one-time, very low-cost setup with very minimal expenses, right? So there's no need to install or maintain IT infrastructure. So again, with that, you also get you don't need a dedicated resource to consistently monitor your server health or the OS or whatever's on premise. So for example, like with a PMS, like Shiji's PMS, we normally the system will notify you and let you know on the uptime of the system, each of the module status. You can get all this from your page, from your hotel PMS page. So and part of the benefits that I always emphasize to the hoteliers as well is that it's actually when a system is a system designed to be from ground up to be a cloud system, it's designed to be simple and easy. So most of the cloud solutions that we have, when you deploy, it doesn't take long for the staff to learn the product as compared to a traditional on-premise solution. So, and last but not least, of course, there's always, with a cloud solution, you have an all-time access to the PMS. There's no need for reports to be generated and emailed to the stakeholders or sent to the stakeholders. Right now, at the current time, with the benefit of cloud, the hoteliers or the stakeholders can always access the PMS at any time from wherever they're at, using just a mobile device or a simple tablet.
Thanks, Simon. I think they're all good points, and you touched there on sort of the ease of deployment, which sort of takes us through to the next sort of talking point that I wanted to call out. And Mataza, maybe you play a few different roles. You certainly have the revenue guidance, and also this sort of really broad consulting capacity. So how do we help people get from on-premise technology to the cloud, and sort of what are you seeing across organizations and enterprises around all the thinking and the planning and sort of the thoughts around that?
All right. Very exciting thing about cloud native technology, as has been proven during the pandemic, even leading into the pandemic, is that there is a bit of pent up frustration, I think, in the industry about relying on a few limited tech vendors, and that has driven its own unique bias on the awareness of what is possible, how hard is it, how long will it take, what is the pain of change, and often doing nothing becomes a bit of a subliminal mantra amongst a lot of decision makers. So, so for me, some of the points that were raised by the others on the panel, it's driving awareness and a cultural, encouraging a shift in thinking right from the C-suite downwards on, improving the data literacy and governance, and that then has a consequence on the technology impacting the people and the results. So I think now there is an opportunity to adapt very quickly, with ease, with minimal disruption, and quantify the consequence of not doing something. All right. So I think I think getting over the bias and a lot of the noise and a lot of infodemic that is coming through now. So we have cloud native solutions, it's a no-brainer. But what are the nuances within those cloud native capabilities? How will it help a business achieve more profitable outcomes? So a platform, as Travis described, is a great way of putting it. There is no one technology that is at the heart of everything, right? It is how do you then consolidate the intelligence technology, the distribution technology, easily, quickly, without any downtime, complexity, very little training, and to see results quickly and immediately. So with the volatility that is going on right now, I think the key concern in people's minds are that legacy technology is struggling, needs overriding, and people are juggling multiple jobs or have been stood down. And when the lockdowns are ending and opening and bubbles are opening and closing, I think businesses are being driven to think, how do I prepare myself for that surge? And how can I have some intelligent automation and help my people, whoever I have left, to be better empowered to help the business capture demand, understand where the demand is. So I think there's a whole cultural shift and a thought around how much should we invest in technology and what is the consequence of not actually embracing newer ways of doing things.
Excellent. Thank you, Murtaza. That was really good. You'll see me occasionally scribbling down some things because Murtaza uses a few phrases which I really quite like. So the pain of change, like that. I like that. What is the pain of change? And really sort of understanding that in the broad scheme of things. And Travis, I wanted to touch then on maybe the pain of change, which is really the change management process, right? So how do we help a business? How do we help a group of hotels or a single hotelier with that change management process as we go from on-premise to cloud technology?
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of pain of change, the word migration used to be headache-inducing for many hoteliers, and with any change, it can be very difficult. And the property management system has always had a special place for the hotelier. So I guess it's really important that with any change, the adoption and transition is managed. Moving from an on-premise on a local area network to a cloud platform using high-speed internet will mean the user's experience is vastly different. User interface is one thing, but being able to generate reports and review vast amounts of information, it just means the technology stack behind the UI needs to be developed in such a way that performance is central. The internet is only one piece of it. I believe the preparation for change is important, but behind the scenes and leading up to any change, there needs to be a great deal of user acceptance testing. There needs to be migration iterations. There needs to be a thorough working of what needs to be migrated and what needs to be reconfigured. And when it gets time to cut over to the new platform, the number of challenges and errors and issues have all been worked through. And so there is a great deal of work that can be done leading up to any change. And I believe that to be the key to change vendors.
Awesome. Thanks, Travis. And yeah, really good sort of thorough points, and just really those milestones and steps to get through that process are really good to understand. And obviously we all need somebody to help us through that process. And Mitchell, what are you seeing as sort of one of those vendors, I suppose, participating in that process, right? Helping operations move from on-prem to cloud systems. What are you seeing as being the outcomes, positive or negative, through that process? And then also, I remember when we were chatting the other day, we were sort of looking across your exposure to hospitality. Is it advanced compared to maybe other sectors like retail, or still behind? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. I think one of the big things for me, especially with the customers I deal with, is that I've never seen an industry like accommodation where, with the on-premise technology that's existed for years, everything's just so hard. It's so hard and it's so difficult, and making any small change can cost thousands of dollars. I had one hotel group here in New Zealand who were wanting to move to integrated payments, and they were wanting to go up, I think, like one version in their PMS. And I think the total cost was going to come out to close to $1 million, just so they could have integrated payments in order to upgrade the hardware in order for it to be successful. And so I think, for me, from my slightly kind of outside view, is just that things shouldn't be as difficult as they can be, or as they have been. From like a top level, obviously understanding there's a whole lot of complexity to making any type of change and to putting anything in place, and if it's done badly, it can not go well. I've had hospitality customers outside of accommodation who have decided that they wanted a cloud-based point of sale, and they've quickly selected a vendor, put something in, and then 2 months later ripped it out because they've realized it hasn't really worked well for them and their needs. And I think just making a change quickly based upon what you think the cheapest or most cloud-looking option isn't going to result in good outcomes for your property or your team that's working with it. And that being said as well, I've got a property we implemented a month ago where they actually a lot of the business within the property is based around the restaurant. So this particular hotel had a small hotel and a larger restaurant that they implemented, and they actually implemented an on-premise point of sale solution for the restaurant and another cloud-based POS vendor. And just the level of complexity for that property in terms of making changes, they went through an ownership change recently. It was hugely difficult. There's on-premise software there for the restaurant. The hotel PMS was in the cloud. We were having to make changes to get it done, and it just got really, really tricky. So, I mean, from my perspective, things should be easier. Making changes should be easier, but it's important not just to change something or to pick the fastest and most available vendor there just because you think they look like the sexiest one. And in answer to your question around hospitality versus accommodation, it's different everywhere. It's obviously different in Australia for some of our Australian merchants that we work with to in New Zealand. Where I'm from in New Zealand, hospitality is doing quite well. Like I have some customers, there's one customer in Queenstown I have who focus a lot on their F&B or hospitality aspect of their operation, and they actually have driven a lot of interest in the property just from the emphasis they've put on that restaurant and just domestic travel, and changing the way that they've kind of gone about marketing themselves as a brand for their customers.
Very good, thank you. There's episode 3 of Shiji Buzz this month will be sort of on a whole range of F&B related aspects of technology and maybe driving some revenue and new business opportunities. So Mitchell, there might be some interesting things that we can sort of relate to that. I was going to say that sort of being on the outside sometimes brings a perspective, right, that is often, that can be missed if you're within, I'm going to use the word bubble, if you're within the bubble, right? So maybe it helps to highlight some things that shouldn't always be the case, or just because it was the norm doesn't mean it should still be the norm. I think, and Mataza, we've then sort of now we're starting to see all these vendors who are in the mix, right? And we've sort of talked about platform, and there's a whole range of solutions now sitting together, maybe in the cloud side by side. And they all have different vendors, they all have different requirements, they all have different expectations. How do we put those systems and people and teams and what have you together? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think what I have seen is businesses that are keen to see how they can be more agile and nimble. I think it's also clearly articulating and with the help of maybe bring somebody in who can tie all the pieces together, right? Okay, so what is your existing purpose to be as a business? If you're a single hotel or a multi-property organization, and what is your current tech stack? How is it? How is this tech helping you either to achieve a better outcome or reducing your capacity to succeed better? So it's listening and understanding and putting together the requirements in enough detail, and I think bringing in the expertise and knowledge to help also the key stakeholders understand the consequence of selecting the best in breed. And with the example of cloud native environment is on a platform, what is it going to help you to have things like a quality of integration that can be easily enabled, is not going to cost you an arm and a leg. It doesn't require you to have expensive upgrades, and will allow you to very quickly train and empower someone to handle to have a high level of automation. I'm talking about real-time pricing automation and analytics. So in terms of understanding the data, I suppose governance and literacy in the organization, without wanting anyone to be a data scientist, but having enough live real-time information at your fingertips. So for me, without the core revenue strategy structure, and then you can quantify and justify the investment associated with bringing in a suitable, I suppose, group of vendors together. Often it is knowing what the other vendors do well and maybe what their gaps are and opportunities are, and often maybe debunking some of the marketing fluff that often goes out, right? Everybody wants to sell their solution. It's also helping people to understand you've got something here which may be working in parallel with somebody. Maybe you're paying something which you already have. Are you taking full advantage of what you have? Why are you spending where you're spending? So if you understand the whole revenue cycle, right from every, I suppose, tech or application, whether it is business intelligence or preferencing or digital customer acquisition, CRM, parity solutions. So I think it's good to help educate and bring in everybody across the different departments to break through the famous silos, and also to break through the KPIs. Okay, what is the most important KPI for you as a business? What are the traditional KPIs that are actually stifling innovation or stopping someone from wanting to change anything? Are you incentivize somebody for on an RGI or a forecast accuracy? So I think there needs to be that thought process from the higher up to challenge the status quo, to be willing to listen and really understand what that investment is translating into. Is it helping me be able to generate positive revenue outcomes, be profitable? Is it giving me the right analytics at my fingertips? Am I saving time and effort? I can go on about the skills shortage, conversation.
Yeah.
But I think there are a few points there perhaps to reflect on.
Plenty, thank you. Yes, we need more time to unpack a whole lot of that. That's okay. I'm seeing a consistent theme about sort of breaking down what was the traditional way and the silos that you talk about, and there's a lot there that has historically been in the industry, maybe that needs to be reset, if you like. And Mitchell, you're one of those vendors that typically needs to sit in that mix, right? So do you go into that process and that project with a customer mindful of other vendors, or sort of what capacity do you have to be flexible with other vendors, I suppose?
I think from our perspective, as a payment processor for a hotel, we want to sit with the customer and understand what is the status quo, what is the right now, what are the different vendors that are being used, and what are you currently doing in terms of your payment strategy, and then take some of the learnings that we have from other properties that we have worked with to then ask the question, is there something that we can do differently with this? Obviously, we have to be mindful, like you say, of other vendors. I gave that example of a property where they're running 2 different systems and it's 2 completely different ways of using it for those 2 different vendors. So we as a vendor, or I as a vendor, need to know exactly what are the different systems that are in place. And then from there, we kind of plan a strategy, if you will, or a plan of attack of how we can, not just sell someone a piece of hardware or sell someone a rate for their payment processing technology, but we try and, really sit with our customers and say, how can we actually make your life work a little bit easier in terms of the way you do things? So, yeah.
And just thinking about that, I think, again, we could have a whole session around, right, the whole payment space, taking it from really just a must-have, an operational process, right, into an opportunity and even a revenue opportunity. We will park that for some spare time. Simon, I think you're helping a lot of people sort of break down these old thoughts, these sort of these traditions, if you like, with hotel groups and maybe their conservative owners, perhaps. How are you helping people break through this mindset to successfully get them into cloud technology?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So part of the role that we play here as a provider, as a vendor, you need to tell them that, look, to those traditional mindset owners that still prefer to have an on-premise solution versus cloud, is that we can show them that, look, with a hotel PMS on the cloud or POS on the cloud, the hotel can manage everything remotely and instantaneously. So you can do it right wherever you're at the moment, right? So and then hoteliers can always leverage on mobile apps to stay on top of the operations. So you can always there'll be apps that you can use from your mobile phone or from your tablet, and you can do a lot of operational tasks again from the palm of your hand. This allows you to do things like operational tasks such as check-ins, checkouts. You can even run a report from your tablet. You can do reservations, even up to inventory management. Again, with all this, nowadays we talk about security, right? So when we talk about security, I mean, a few years back, especially where I'm from, there was a couple of hotels that were sort of got into a security issue with ransomware. Again, with a cloud enable data center that is secure, such as the AWS, these problems will not arise, right? Because these data centers are very has gone through many security checks, as opposed to a traditional on-premise server where the IT or security manager has to really constantly monitor what's happening there on premise. So with cloud, you don't have to have that worry anymore. And one of the things that we have also is that on average, I will tell the hotel owners that, look, when you embark on a cloud-based solution, the time it takes to deploy is about 1/3 of the time it takes to deploy compared to a traditional on-premise model. So for example, in the past experience that I have is like if you have an on-premise solution for a PMS, for example, it takes about a month and a half to get everything up and running from day one until you go live. With cloud solutions, normally it takes about 1/3 of the time in comparison. So again, this actually benefits the owners as well, right? So because the labor cost it takes for the hotel to deploy a new system on the cloud versus the labor cost on the versus the one that's on premise, you will see a big difference in terms of labor costs. And nowadays, I also have to remind those traditional mindset owners that look, they are very wary that their data has been hosted in cloud. They value their privacy, but look, I mean, nowadays everything is in the cloud. If you look at your banking application, if you look at your driving records, if you look at the health records, everything is actually stored. It's not stored at the branch where you open your account in. It's actually stored centrally in cloud. So that is part of the roles that we play in doing the sales process, is to convince the owners that look, with this cloud migration from on-premise, you actually have all these benefits that you will gain, as opposed to having that traditional mindset of having an on-premise solution.
Thanks, Simon. I appreciate that. I think your comment there about sort of that cost of deployment and time of deployment reminds me of that comment that sort of example that Mitchell gave earlier about then the ongoing upgrade process, right? So the same applies. The cost of those ongoing upgrades and maintenance of on-premise versus cloud just continue to add on to that. I can see some questions coming through, which is great. Thank you for that. We'll certainly make sure we keep a few moments at the end to grab to those. So we've touched on, and Mataza started to call out sort of some of the misinformation out there, I suppose. We've used a few terms, platforms and native cloud, but then we hear other stories and we hear other experiences, right, of early adopters and pilots of technology. And is it fake cloud? Is it native cloud? How do we break through that? And maybe, Travis, you've implemented plenty of cloud technology, right? And in many cases, involved with some of these early adopters. So are there some real life experiences where we've made a few mistakes? We all make mistakes, right? So have we made a few mistakes, and what are we learning from those mistakes, perhaps?
Yeah, really interesting. Fake cloud, you say. Well, I won't really touch on that or who, but what I will mention is just the importance of having a true partner in your technology decision. You know, having the means to run that user acceptance testing setup, dot your I's, cross your T's, get up close and personal with the solution, being able to run those migrations, refine the process, tune the system, put it in front of the right people, assess errors, review challenges, define processes, and then potentially redefine the processes around the workflows and user interface that platform such as Shiji Enterprise Platform can include. I guess for my customers and some of those early adopters of cloud, it's always been about the strongest tech partner. They need to be service orientated. You need to be able to respond. You need to be able to answer the phone. You need to have, team members that are dedicated to their support and service needs. Shiji is customer service, and for us, the development roadmap is something that we've always written with the customer's needs in mind. Over the years with our Shiji Enterprise Platform, we've worked incredibly close with our early adopters, with our pilots on those user workflows. And we're always redefining the processes to ensure that the customer gets what they need. Not all customers want what the big box chain hotel has dictated through an old system. So for us, it's about really listening to the new needs and to the greater audience. The last thing, and probably the most important thing, is upgrades. Do your homework. Understand how upgrades and your technology partner work. Understand how long your business can expect to be impacted by downtime or any system outages. This for me and for the partners over the years has been really key in understanding who they want to work with and why. Get it in writing, understand what will happen when your system is upgraded. Whether it's fortnightly sprint releases, whether it's quarterly, half-yearly, yearly, whatever it is, understand how your business will be impacted during an upgrade.
Excellent, good points, Travis says, and really sometimes it's just the easiest way is simply to call out those considerations and those learnings, right, and really just tick them off like a checklist. And Simon, I suppose the same, right? You've seen hotels, groups of properties move to cloud technology, either in a process that you've been directly involved in, or you've seen their other systems moving to the cloud. Have you seen a few mistakes along the way? What are some learnings or suggestions you are now seeing?
Yeah, so I mean, for customers that are migrating to cloud, I think what I've seen in the past is that there's some mistakes made in terms of vendor selection, right? So normally, of course, each vendor from a particular company would propose their systems to them. But again, as part of my role and as part of our salespeople's role, is to be normally go into the business, try to understand what they have there, as what has been spoken before by some of the consultants here. And then most owners do not conduct a so-called a business analysis before moving to the cloud. So when you are planning to migrate to a cloud-based application, what are the benefits that you get in terms of business, right? It's not just I'm just moving from on-prem to cloud, and just to make sure that I cut off the IT infrastructure or so most business owners or hoteliers need to actually do a really deep dive analysis on how the hotel should run when you migrate to the cloud. So for example, like, do you want the applications to run faster? Are you looking at costs, right? Now, how do you optimize your existing solution to do that, right? So again, not all vendors are the same. Like what Travis had mentioned before, there is a cloud, as we can see. So each cloud vendor actually has a set of features and solve set of problems, right? So you, as a hotelier or stakeholder at the hotel, need to really consider, sit down with the vendor and see what are the features that will benefit your hotel prior to moving to the solution, right? Again, you have to consider things like scalability and flexibility when choosing a cloud vendor. And again, also a cloud vendor has to be compliant in terms of security, compliant in terms of payments, regional compliance. So not all vendors are compliant, even though they claim to be. So again, it's something that you have to really analyze and make sure that the vendor is compliant with all the regional compliance, for example, right? So again, security, as I mentioned, is very important nowadays. So when you host data on the cloud, you have to make sure that your vendor is actually very compliant in terms of security. Again, I've had experiences where the vendor claims to be on the cloud, but the layer of security that they provide is not there. So hence, you put your hotel at risk if you are going with a vendor that is not really security compliant. Okay. Last but not least, I think please go through your SLA agreement before you sign with the vendor, right? Make sure that you go through all the pieces, what is covered, what is not covered, what are the contingency plans. Make sure that your data is retained. We have seen cloud vendors again, I won't name who, that has promised data retention. But again, if you deep dive into the contracts that you see, you notice that your data is only kept for a brief amount of time, for example, 2 to 3 years. So in certain places, you need more than 2 to 3 years of data to be compliant with the local laws, right? So again, my advice to most of the people that are attending this call is really deep dive and see what you can do. Really deep dive and make sure that all those aspects that I mentioned is actually observed and will benefit your hotel.
Very good, thank you. Yeah, there's a lot in the fine print, I think, there. But Tazi, you equally have seen the on-premise to cloud migration, transition, or whatever we want to call it, that process. Mistakes you've seen along the way, some learnings to share?
Well, frankly, over the years in the trenches in hotels, the hard part has always been implementing something and then getting it to a point where it starts performing, and then working within the limitations. So I think the learnings that have come out from a shift to cloud, you could immediately see by the success from the customers, how quickly and easily you have one version. You don't have multiple versions to upgrade to. Innovation is seamlessly provided into the application along the way. So there is a robust future development pipeline. You don't have to wait years for a new version to come out sometime in the future, right? And then when you're implementing it, the speed of implementation. So I have actually good learnings from this, which is taking away a lot of the pain that we've experienced in the past on the decisions we made because we didn't know any better or we didn't have any choice. So now you've got a property or a group of hotels can implement within weeks. You can work with an open API, cloud native platform, execute an integration within weeks, onboard and implement properties within days. I mean, with a certain PMS, you can flick a button and you're automatically onboarded. The agreements are much more simpler. You can negotiate monthly pricing and convenient exit clauses. It takes minutes to train somebody, and then comes around the education around what data is important now. A lot of the mistakes in the past have also been that we have to look at certain types of data that influence our decisions. Now, as the volatility and the sort of the historical data has become a little bit hazy, I think it has also bubbled up another, how do I say, a better way. How do you make good use of your primary data and all the wealth of data that you have in your systems? How do you bring it all together and get timely access to analytics? So I think the old way of having to extract, crunch data, manipulate data has changed. So I think I have more good and positive news that it doesn't have to be that hard. The pain and suffering doesn't have to be part of implementing something and working with something. And we can see that from comments, ridiculously easy to use. As long as you have speed, scalability, you bring on more properties very rapidly. And I think now in this environment, the key I think takeaway here is that you need to be able to respond quickly and effectively with the right amount of data at your fingertips without paralyzing yourself with a flood and a mountain of data that comes from everywhere.
Yeah.
So I think there are plenty of existing case studies to show that there is a new wave that the early adopters are leading right now. Yeah.
Thanks, Mataza. I can see there's a few questions there in the chat and Q&A. I think just sort of really querying some more of the benefits, I suppose, of moving to cloud, and hopefully that's helped address some of those questions. We'll come to those in just a moment. I liked your term data, sort of the legacy data can be a bit hazy. I think that's a very polite way to describe it, perhaps. And I know that, and I think Travis touched on this this before, right, about the migration process to cloud, and obviously data is such a big part of that. So again, we can probably do a whole nother episode, right, Travis, on the process of cleaning up data and where that process is and lies.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just the data that's migrated, and we can talk about profiles and reservations and historical data, but going a layer deeper would be data sovereignty and data security, and the very complicated global nature of data at the moment. And if you're a hotel chain that has hotels across many different regions with many different regulations, then data sovereignty is something that you'll be discovering and learning more about. So definitely we could do a session on that one.
Very good, thank you. Last quick question before we jump into the chat and queries from our attendees. So we've talked about moving to cloud, and we've sort of touched on some of the new technology. We gave some examples of what tech we liked ourselves. What's going to stick post-COVID, right? Is what's going to last? What's with us now for good? A quick answer, Travis?
I think post-COVID, the term contactless will become more important, but I think e-registration cards, I think digital signage in lobbies will become multifaceted, and something such as an iPad Pro to register, acknowledge, to complete forms on will be the way forward. I think the paper version of a registration card will become something of a fossil, and the hotel lobby will become more of an engagement center for digital.
Very good. Mitchell, you're probably seeing some of this already in the payment space with consumers. What's going to stick post-COVID?
Similar thoughts to Travis, just convenience and contactless, yes, but just making that experience as smooth as possible for customers when they come to stay on your property. People want it to be as easy as possible and as hassle-free as possible. And if it's not hassle-free, if it's complicated, if there's multiple steps involved to it, people are going to complain and not have a good experience.
Yeah, good points. Simon, what technology is going to stick? What are the trends that are going to stick post-COVID, do you think?
Again, I'm pretty much repeating what the humans have said before. Is every time we embark on a proposal to the customer, one of the things, main concern they have is what contactless solution do you have? So anything that's contactless, right? Be it a mobile check-in, which you can do again from the palm of your hand, to e-signatures, so things like that. Even for and beyond just the PMS, you have your POS as well, having to order via QR code. There's no need for contactless. I talk about payments as well. I think we've covered that as well. Nowadays, with the birth of e-wallets, people are quite hesitant to use cash. One. Number two is even the traditional way of keying your PIN number into a credit card device, that has also been sort of shunned by the hoteliers because it involves contact. So all this will stay post-COVID because it's become a norm. I think most countries, for example, where I'm at and around me, we have to scan to go into a premise so that the government can track in case there's any COVID individuals have entered, so they can notify you. So that has become a trend. Be it even in the past, I've noticed that a lot of the senior citizens are quite weary of using their mobile phones to scan because they are just a little bit afraid of the technology. But nowadays, I think it is the norm. You will see a lot of people embarking on this journey.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Simon. Mataza, we're nearly out of time. I'm going to get you to help me answer a couple of the questions in the chat, if that's right. Travis, thanks for grabbing a couple of those as well. There's a few questions here around sort of the security of cloud, right? So you've got your data in the cloud. Sort of what are your thoughts just briefly on the responsibility around security and who has access to that, perhaps?
Is that me, Matthew? Okay.
Yeah, can I get your help on that one quickly?
So with regards to security on the cloud, firstly, you'll know clearly when you're signing up with somebody what kind of data is being used. They'll not retain and keep any personal information. That's very clear on how the system is architected. What you can do is ensure that you have a user access clearly defined, right, on who can actually override and manipulate the system versus view-only access. Right? So I see a little concern around security. Frankly, just don't share logins and do all the basics that we've been taught over the years in the industry.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. We'll keep a note of these questions so we can come back to you post the webinar and maybe provide a little bit more content.
Matthew, just on data security, I think for the hotel, data-driven and data-driven security, it's always synonymous with the protection of the guest's personal data. And I think the principal data breaches over the last few years have always involved that guest information stored in property management systems. So I think for hotels that need to store personal data to operate, they need to maintain high security levels and they need to protect their guests. And there are a great range of guidelines to be followed. With a cloud property management system provider, such as Shiji, those guidelines are followed by us as we are the vendor of their data, so to speak.
Maybe Simon, very quickly, there's a question here that maybe cloud doesn't always necessarily seem to be lower cost than maybe on-premise, but I'm sure there's a broad range of considerations that need to be factored into the dollars as such. You've got like 30 seconds to respond.
Yeah, so again, there is no, I think one of the questions here is that do you have a calculator? Again, we in certain ways we do. We based on the number of rooms that you have. Again, but the traditional pricing of an on-premise versus cloud, I think it varies, right? So again, with cloud, we talk about scalability, right? And there are modules. When you get a cloud system, you can start from small to big. So today you may have one hotel. 10 years from now, you may have 20 hotels, right? So with cloud, we can start small and then we can slowly build up your system. So that actually enables you to save on some of the costs there, right? Again, like I mentioned before, we talk about labor costs. We've gone through this pandemic, through the lockdowns, we've done a lot of training. All of this is done remotely, right? So with an on-premise solution, to have a remote training session is a little bit tough compared to when you have a cloud-based solution. So these are some of the considerations that I always tell the owners that, look, when you migrate to cloud, these are some of the benefits. Again, there are a lot of benefits. If I spend time telling the folks here, it's going to take us another hour.
That's all right. That's fine. Thank you. And just quickly, there was a comment here about, I think you sort of touched on around time and sort of costs, and there's a technology here about sort of deployment, and is that a model that I have to pay for hours, or can it be self-deployment? And I think the question rightly notes that some vendors already moved to a model that allows the customer to self-deploy or self-sign up. And certainly from the Shiji space, we're seeing that as well with some of our early adopters who are already well and truly in a position that they can literally open a new property by themselves with their technology and deploy that with brand standards and process in place that conforms to that enterprise. So that's certainly a realistic option today. Thank you, everybody. If we didn't get to your questions, my apologies. We'll try and take a note of those and send you a comment afterwards. 1 second to just give you a couple of insights. I'll share my screen. Hopefully you can see our next episode, which is this time next Tuesday, all around distribution. Patricia Brennan from our team will lead that discussion. I'll be your host again. And then after that, we have F&B and then finally a guest engagement session to wrap up the month. If you'd like to do a little bit more research, I suppose, on broad industry trends, we'd highly recommend going to insights.shijigroup.com. We share a whole lot of analysis, learnings, and feedback there as well. I appreciate everybody's time. Hope it was enjoyable. It's been nice to see you all, talk to you all. Stay safe. Thank you.